Hello and welcome. I'm really happy to welcome you back, Diana. Dr. Diana Howard is our Vice President of Research and Development here at Dermalogica. And in Diana's position, she not only researches and develops all of our fabulous Dermalogica products, but she also and her team researches and develops all of our curriculum for our educational classes. So there's no one better to ask all things Dermalogica of than Dr. Diana Howard. And we have conversations all the time, Diana, you and I, and we've worked together for many years, about the thorny issues, the things that we want to talk about. Should we do this? Could we do that? What do we want to see in a product? And they're never sort of outside of our offices or our discussion groups. And so I thought it would be great to tackle some of those issues that we know we have questions about and share them with all of you so that you have a definitive answer to where Dermalogica stands between Diana and myself on certain fairly controversial issues. So I want to dive straight in, and I want to talk today about preservatives and specifically the use of parabens. Because Dermalogica, from the very beginning, we are absolutely maniacal, and you are maniacal, that the product be, number one, safe, and being well preserved and not growing any bacteria or fungus or molds is obviously critical in that arena. We do use parabens. They are controversial, so let's talk a little bit about it. First of all, maybe you could address what is the controversy about parabens?
Well, the controversy really stems from a report that was published in 2004 by Dr. Darbre and his colleagues. And basically what he did is he examined breast tissue that had tumors, and he noted there were parabens in them, and he published this. Well, what happened was people read this report, they kind of took it out of context, and the summary that the conclusion they came to was that the parabens were the cause of the breast tumors. So lo and behold, this started the ball rolling. People got all up in arms about it. What happened is it was taken really out of context, and even the publication went back to Dr. Darbre and said, you need to settle this once and for all. People are saying that the parabens, which were used in the underarm deodorant from these individuals, and there were only 20, mind you, were the cause of their breast cancer. And everybody started saying parabens had estrogenic qualities associated with them. Dr. Darbre published right a few months later and said nowhere did he infer that. He was just saying people need to study this more. Well, nobody reads it's like reading the fine print. You ignore it. Meanwhile, this is escalating, and various groups around the world who have access to internet sites were really blowing this out of proportion. And the next thing you know, the public outcry is that parabens are estrogenic, they cause breast cancer, we need them out of all products. When in fact, the peer review, which is what scientists do with any scientific paper, they review it and they determine whether it is legitimate science. The peer review said he didn't do a control group, that it was too small of a sample size. We use parabens in foods, pharmaceuticals, various things that you're exposed to, your toothpaste. Nowhere was it ever proven that the underarm deodorant was the source of the parabens. It could have been in from the toothpaste and the food that these people ingested. And even Dr. Darbre said there was never a causal link of the parabens and the breast cancer or the breast tumors. So the scientific community was up in arms and said, you know, people have taken this out of context. This is not legitimate science. It hasn't been proven over. It's excellent for opening the door and asking more questions, but it has been totally taken out of context.
But it became an emotional hot button. And then when people are emotionally invested in a belief, they don't always, as you say, they don't always want to hear the scientific side, the proof of it, to say, okay, this is what's really going on. We, of course, we have to look at the scientific side and say, what's the reality? What could we do? What should we be doing? Now, interestingly enough, for a variety of other reasons, only because we're always looking at different ingredients and what works best and what's the best tolerated by the skin. I mean, we haven't used parabens as a preservative in several years in any of our new formulations, but we do have them in some of our formulations that are several years old. Is there a move to remove parabens? Is that something you think that cosmetic companies should look at, only because it's an emotional hot button, or really they're still the go-to preservative in terms of safety?
I still think they're one of the best preservatives that you can use. They are the least toxic. The amount that we use in cosmetic formulations is so low and small.
Right.
The safety reports on them they're 100% convincing to me. They are the best preservatives to use. But as you pointed out, the public outcry, the emotional baggage associated with it is forcing cosmetic companies to formulate without them. Now I have to tell you, we test all of our Dermalogica products exhaustively before we finalize them.
Yeah, on you and I first.
Yes. And every preservative I've tested, we get a higher incidence of people with irritation than we ever did with the parabens.
Absolutely.
And my concern is sure, I can formulate and substitute them out, but it's only going to be a matter of time when somebody then says, well, these preservatives might be linked to this, and it won't be based on sound science either.
Right.
So it's very disturbing, but at the same time, we're kind of in a very uncomfortable situation where we're forced to do something and it's not based on legitimate science.
Right, it's sort of a knee-jerk reaction to an emotional hot button. And your point, absolutely valid, that so many of the other preservatives, not only do they cause skin irritation, and we've experienced it. We've done blind tests where people say, wow, this side really kind of stung, or this side was warm. But the other thing is, and you and I have looked at, in this lab, numerous products which are so poorly preserved in that sort of paraben-free, natural, quote-unquote, arena, that they're physically growing mold and fungus in the formula as you're looking at it. I mean, it's disgusting.
Well, you know my take on preservatives. I would never use, and I do not recommend anyone ever use, a non-preserved product.
Absolutely.
You have to do an exhaustive micro-challenge testing with every product, which we do here in the lab at Dermalogica. You have to make sure that all strains of bacteria, which could be harmful and detrimental to the end user, there are bacterial strains that can cause blindness, infections. You have to make sure your preservative system is valid against these bacteria, and as you said, the molds, the fungi, the yeast. It's not just bacteria that people have to preserve against. You need a product that you can maintain the integrity and the purity of that product.
Absolutely, which is why we invest, and all responsible companies invest so much money into research and development. You're not just whipping it up in your bathtub. Well, hopefully not, because that certainly wouldn't be
But some
safe.
do that.
I know, I hear those stories all the time, whipping it up and filling the hand jars, and oh my God, the bacteria, the fungi, the mold. However, the critical issue is safety first.
Absolutely.
Product has to be safe, has to be well preserved, has to maintain the health of the skin. And we continue, as all responsible companies and chemists do, to always look for new, better, improved ingredients and use them judiciously when and if we should. So,
Absolutely.
good subject, obviously more to come. I want to thank all of you for being with us on this 9 at 9. Please go on to the Dermalogica website. Check out Dr. Diana Howard's articles on all subjects Dermalogica, and go online and look at those studies that Diana spoke about to do with parabens, and look at the science behind it, because that's when we're truly armed with information and education, and that's the hallmark of a professional skin therapist, taking not just the emotional issues to our clients, but the science and the education behind it, so we can help them be better informed as to exactly how to get the very best from their skin health.